That theme song. You know it. Everyone knows it. Green Acres is the place to be. Farm living is the life for me. And there he is. That smile. Warm. Easy. Safe. The kind of face that made an entire generation of Americans feel like everything was going to be fine. Cut to the war photograph. Marines in the water. Bodies floating. Machine gun fire tearing across a Pacific beach so violent that the water turned red before the first wave even reached shore. Cut to Margot, standing in a spotlight. 18 years old. The most beautiful woman in any room she ever walked into. Performing at the Waldorf Astoria in New York while most girls her age were still in school. Cut to Eddie Albert, sitting in a television interview chair. Smiling. Warm. Easy. That face. That specific face that Hollywood decided was worth more to the machine than everything underneath it.
I said, quickly jump in the boat. Nobody moved. One of them yelled at me, "Did I hear you say you were coming back?" Then one of the Marines said, if you come back, bring us some rifles. And somebody in the back there yelled, "You heard the kid. Go on home and bring us back some rifles."
Stop right there. Look at that smile. Really look at it. Because the man behind that smile had already done something so extraordinary that no Emmy, no Golden Globe, no star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame comes close to capturing what he actually was. He saved over 100 lives under relentless machine gun fire in the bloodiest beach landing of the entire Pacific War, before he ever made you laugh on a Tuesday night. And Hollywood put him in a show about a city lawyer who cannot figure out farming. This is the story they never told you. My name is not important. What is important is that I spent weeks going through every military record, every declassified intelligence document, every first-hand account from the men who were actually there that I could locate. And what I found will make you question everything you think you know about the man, the machine, called Oliver Douglas. By the end of this video, you will never hear that theme song the same way again. Let's go. Minneapolis, Minnesota, 1906. Edward Albert Heimberger, eldest of 5 children in a family that worked hard and had very little. While other kids in his neighborhood played after school, Eddie was selling newspapers on street corners to help keep the lights on. Not for pocket money, to survive. And then World War I started, and his German last name became a weapon that other children used against him every single day. Eddie Hamburger, that is what they called him. Every morning, every lunch break, every walk home. And here's the first thing the controlled narrative always skips over when it tells the Eddie Albert story. He did not become resilient despite those years. He became who he was because of them. Because a boy who learns that early that the world will find a reason to make you small if you let it learn something that cannot be taught in any acting class on the planet. You go straight through. Every single time. Straight through. The drama club at Central High School was not a hobby. It was the first place Eddie Heimberger could stand in front of people and be someone other than Eddie Hamburger. And he never forgot what that felt like. By 1929, the Great Depression had taken his college career at the University of Minnesota. Junior year. Gone. No warning. No soft landing. Just the door closing. He tried everything. Insurance sales. Traveling musician. Magic show master of ceremonies. Radio performer. And every single time a radio announcer butchered his name on air, he felt Minneapolis again. So he made a decision. He dropped the name entirely. Took his middle name. Albert. Eddie Albert. Built from scratch. Because that is what he did with everything. By 1935, he was on Broadway. By 1938, Warner Brothers had him under a 7-year contract. Ronald Reagan was his co-star. Jane Wyman was his friend. The machine was building the image. Charming. Dependable. Wholesome. And then a studio executive decided that Eddie Albert had been too friendly with his wife. 7-year contract. Gone. Blacklisted. Overnight. No conversation. No appeal. The door closed the same way the Depression had closed his college. Without asking permission. And here is where the man, the machine, thought it had finished with made the decision that changes everything. He went sailing. Not as an escape. As a decision. 1939. Off the coast of Baja California. And Eddie Albert started noticing things that did not add up. Suspicious vessel movements. Unusual activity along the Mexican coastline. He reported what he had observed to Army intelligence. And Army intelligence looked at this blacklisted Hollywood actor with a Bronze Star not yet earned and a career on pause and said, "We need you to go back, not as a sailor, as a circus performer. I need you to hold that for a full second." A blacklisted Hollywood actor, disguised as a circus clown and high wire artist, with the Escalante Brothers Circus, covertly photographing German observation posts along the Mexican coastline for United States Army intelligence. That is not a film pitch. That is what Eddie Albert actually did. In 1939, while the studio that blacklisted him was making movies without him, he was in Mexico in clown makeup collecting intelligence that would contribute to America's understanding of Axis military positioning in the Western Hemisphere. And nobody in Hollywood put that on a promotional poster, because the machine had decided he was not valuable enough to promote anymore. We are at the 5-minute mark, and I need every single person watching this to stay with me, because what I am about to tell you is the moment this story stops being remarkable and becomes something that you will not forget. November 1943, Tarawa Atoll, Gilbert Islands, Pacific Ocean. The Battle of Tarawa lasted 76 hours. In those 76 hours, 1,000 Americans died. 2,000 were wounded. The beach landing on the first day was catastrophic in a way that the official military briefings did not fully capture until decades later. Landing craft hung up on coral reefs hundreds of yards from shore. Marines forced into chest-deep and waist-deep water in the open. Japanese machine gun positions with unobstructed fields of fire across every single yard of that approach. The water turned red before the first wave reached the beach. That is documented. That is in the records. The water at Tarawa was red. Lieutenant Junior Grade Eddie Albert of the United States Navy was assigned to a small salvage boat. His orders were equipment recovery. His job was to stay back, collect gear, support logistics from a position of relative safety. He looked at the beach. He looked at the Marines dying in the water, men trapped in the open with no cover and no way to reach shore alive. And he turned his salvage boat toward the fire. The machine gun fire did not stop. The explosions in the water around his boat did not stop. The Japanese snipers with direct sight lines to everything moving on that approach did not stop. Eddie Albert kept going. Back to the beach. Load the wounded. Back to safety. Turn around. Go again. Again and again and again. For hours. Under fire the entire time. By the end of that day, he had pulled over 100 Marines out of the water at Tarawa. 100 lives, saved by a man whose orders were to recover equipment. On one of his final runs, a group of Marines called out to him from a protected position. They were alive. They were unarmed. They begged him to bring back weapons so they could rejoin the fight. He went. He found the weapons. He came back. They were all dead. Every single one. He carried that for the rest of his life. The weight of coming back and finding them gone. Wondering every year for the rest of his life whether he could have moved faster. Whether one more trip would have made the difference. That is not in the Green Acres promotional materials. That is the man behind the smile. The Bronze Star with Combat V came after Tarawa. The citation documented what he had done. And then Eddie Albert went back to Hollywood. And Hollywood handed him television. And the machine built the new image. Warm. Charming. Oliver Douglas. Green Acres. That theme song. And somewhere in a filing cabinet in a government building, the Tarawa citation sat in a folder that nobody in the Green Acres writer's room ever asked to read. Now I need to show you the other side of this man. Because Eddie Albert's story is not just about what he did under fire. It is about what he came home to and what he was willing to do for the people he loved. December 5th, 1945. He married Margot. Maria Margarita Boldau y Castilla, born in Mexico City, performing at the Waldorf Astoria in New York at 15 years old. Discovered by a Hollywood screenwriter who put her in a film before she was old enough to fully understand what Hollywood was going to ask of her. She was extraordinary, and the machine came for her too. Her political views, participation in an anti-Franco rally. Her name ended up in red channels. The anti-communist publication that destroyed careers without due process or evidence or any mechanism of appeal. Blacklisted. Again. But this time it was Margot. And Eddie Albert did not go sailing. He stayed. They built a nightclub act together, recorded an album together, refused to let the machine decide that their careers were finished simply because it had decided to stop supporting them. 40 years. That is how long they were married. 40 years of a relationship that survived a blacklist and a war and Hollywood's specific talent for grinding people down until they stopped fighting. And then in 1985, Margot was diagnosed with brain cancer. She had surgery. She never fully recovered. July 17th, 1985. She was gone. And Eddie Albert went home to the house in Pacific Palisades where they had built everything together. And he planted a cornfield in the front yard and a garden in the back. Both of them echoes of Oliver Douglas, the character who believed in growing things and showing up every day for something that needed tending. He tended that cornfield until his hands would not cooperate anymore. 1995, the Alzheimer's diagnosis, and his son Edward Albert Jr. looked at his own career, his own life, his own future, and he put all of it down. 8 years. He cared for his father for 8 years, made sure Eddie could stay in the house, made sure he was not alone, held his hand through the progressive erasure of the mind that had survived the Great Depression and Tarawa and a blacklist and 40 years of Hollywood and the death of the woman he loved. May 26, 2005. Eddie Albert died at 99 years old. Pneumonia. Complication of the Alzheimer's. His son holding his hand. Family surrounding him. The cornfield still in the front yard. And 1 month before Eddie died. 1 month. Edward Albert Jr. was diagnosed with terminal lung cancer. He fought for 17 months. September 22, 2006. He was 55 years old. Father and son. 1 month apart in the diagnoses that ended them both. The Hollywood Walk of Fame star is at 6441 Hollywood Boulevard. It says Eddie Albert. It does not mention Tarawa. It does not mention 100 Marines. It does not mention a salvage boat turned into a lifeline under machine gun fire because a man looked at dying people in the water and could not turn away. It does not mention a 40-year marriage or a cornfield planted for a woman who was gone or a son who gave 8 years of his life so his father could die in his own home. Stars on the Walk of Fame do not say those things. They say the name, and they let the machine decide what the name means. Here is what I want you to carry out of this video tonight. Eddie Albert is not a dark story. He is not a man destroyed by Hollywood. He is not a cautionary tale. He is something far more powerful than any of those things. He is proof that the machine's version of a person is always the smallest version. That the smile on the promotional photograph is never the whole story. That the theme song is never the whole story. That the man behind Oliver Douglas had already done things that Oliver Douglas could never have dreamed of doing before the cameras ever rolled. And the machine never told you. Not because it was hidden, because it decided that warm and charming and wholesome was worth more than true. Eddie Albert saved over 100 lives at Tarawa. He spied for America in clown makeup. He stayed for 40 years. He planted a cornfield for a woman who was gone. He was held by a son who gave everything to hold him. And he died at 99 years old with his family around him, having never once asked the machine to recognize what he actually was. He already knew, and now you know. The scariest part of this story is not what Eddie Albert lost. The scariest part is how many men exactly like him are sitting in folders right now. Bronze stars in government filing cabinets. Cornfields that nobody films. Sons who gave up careers to hold their father's hands. Stories that the machine looked at and decided were worth less than a theme song. Eddie Albert is not the only one. He is just the one we are telling today. The folders are full, and most of them will never get a video.